I'd like to welcome you to the February 5th, 2019 meeting of the Yamhill County Board of Directors, and this is actually designated as an informal work session. So this time is reserved for topics of discussion scheduled for the commissioners in advance. If a work session is not needed, the balance of the meeting will begin at 1:30. We do have a work session today. We have a work session. I'll turn over to Ken Huffer, our county administrator, on review and discussion of our work session schedule. So Ken, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, as we had chatted about a couple weeks ago, we scheduled this work session to schedule work sessions, to basically get topics on the calendar, because we've had a lot of discussion items coming forward, and just looking at getting this organized so then it allows time for staff if we need to have staff here, or if we need to do some research on a specific issue or a topic. And so I brought copies of the calendar for the year, that I was going to hand out. But before I do that, I had one more thing that I would like to, and it's related to the work sessions and our informals, one other topic, and it's more of an administrative change. I know there's been a lot of discussion about when we conduct these informal sessions on Tuesdays, and at times, staff and I, we've struggled in kind of putting together some of the agendas and some of the topics that come forward, and what ends up happening is our agenda for Tuesdays ends up looking like our Thursday agenda, and in reviewing the procedures ordinance and knowing what we use this time for, and it's really a work session. It's not for, the formal business is done on Thursdays, and really the Tuesday session is really for updates and to have discussions, work sessions, and then to basically review the Thursday's agenda, and then that's the business for Tuesdays. And so if there's consensus from the board, I have a draft. I didn't bring copies, but is just to redo the format for the agendas that we post for Tuesdays, and moving forward the draft or the proposed agenda for Thursday would actually be attached to this as part of the packet. And I just wanted to get the commissioner's feedback on that. And you'll see that what I put together is basically broken into two parts, and it's open to discussion on how you want to proceed with that. But you have the first part of the meeting held for the work sessions, and then the second part would be for updates, the agenda review, and if there was an executive session scheduled for that day, some of the typical things that we might see on a Tuesday. So I just wanted to put that out and get your feedback on proceeding with that type of change.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start before I turn over to the other commissioners for comments. I did have an opportunity to talk to Ken about this morning during our normal time that I meet with him, and we talked about a little bit about the agenda and moving forward. I'm personally in favor of separating it out a little bit, so we change the way we do both our informals to make them both more of a work session, and make our formal meetings more of a full session where the public may be able to have more input or more comments. And so I've read this, and I've liked the direction. I know Ken's working with staff. I like the direction Ken's moving with this. So I think it's a good idea to let him come back with a formal proposal on how we move forward with this. So Casey, I'll turn it over to you for comments.
No, I think it's a really good idea. I knew that that was a proposal, so I thought about it and I appreciate it. It helps organize us a little bit more.
Okay, Mary.
Yes, I appreciate the work on that. Thank you. It's needed to be done.
All right.
Thank you.
So Ken, I think then you can go ahead and move forward on finalizing this and coming back to the board and how we'll go ahead and handle this.
Sounds good. All right, and then and so I have a handout, and it's just the printout. I mean, this is exactly what we have posted on the website.
Yeah.
So these are all the dates. You can see a few that for April 2nd and April 30th, we blocked those out because of budget meetings. And also keeping in mind that when we're talking about topics or ideas or scheduling things, that sometimes we may have to reshuffle it because,
Things come up.
things come up.
Right.
And so I'm not sure how best, if you want to proceed, if there are specific topics that commissioners would like to see added to the schedule, or if you want to take some time and look at this and look at your list of items that you would like to see scheduled, and we could come back next week and actually pencil in on the calendar. It's kind of open. I just wanted to make sure we had this discussion and start getting some, work sessions on the calendar, because I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of items that the board would like to discuss, that are specific to a work session.
Casey?
And
Anything?
yeah, I think that might be the best way realistically to do it, is to look at it, put some possibilities down. Maybe we can even send things to you via email and then bring it back. Commissioner Starrett, what do you think?
I think, yeah, once again, if we have a particular interest in getting something scheduled for a work session, we could send it to Ken and then see if there's room that week or the following week and just
Yeah,
go like that.
yeah, like kind of a rolling,
Yeah.
stay a couple of, like a month ahead or 2 months ahead maybe.
Because I know, depending on the issue, because, it also depends on if there's a specific topic, that is going to require staff time, and making sure that, I'm able to arrange to have the staff here, or even if it's an outside agency,
Yeah.
if it's economic development, for example, if we wanted to schedule something and make sure that Avishai would be available to come out, and any other partners related to that specific discussion, we can do that. That's one I would like to get scheduled, because I know SEDCOR is working on, as part of the contract, was supposed to be working on the grants program, revisiting that.
Yeah.
And I think they're getting closer, and I'm looking for Carrie to nod her head. They're getting closer. I think we'll have something to bring back, and that would probably be a good one to have a work session with Abishai to just kind of,
Yeah.
and with Carrie to present what they've prepared so far and get feedback. So then we can finalize what that program's going to look like and have that on a future agenda.
Okay, I think, Ken, based on what you just said, is I'm a big believer that our Tuesday meetings should be allocated more towards work sessions, and I think what I would like to see is the commissioners turning those items to you that they think would warrant a work session, but I'd like to also see you put in, like you mentioned with SEDCOR, putting those things on a timely basis that you think would be good work
Yeah.
Right.
session
keep
topics, and there may
on
be
top of them.
there may be times if we would allocate, let's say, an hour and a half or an hour to our work sessions,
Right.
there may be times that we cover 2 items in a work session, and there
Yep.
may be times where we only do 1, and there may be one that may take 2 work sessions to cover, but I think
Yep.
at least having them far in advance and at least a quarterly schedule, so going into the next quarter, we know what work sessions we might have on, and then with leaving a couple of holes, so if we had to fill a couple of holes with work
Yeah.
sessions that may come up unbeknownst to us, that we have someplace to fill them
Right.
in at. So what I'm hearing, I guess, is a consensus of the board that we go ahead and let Ken know of what things we have, and then you can fill in what things you might have, and we'll see what we can come up with.
If you want to throw all your ideas at me, and then I'll put it together, and then we can come back and we can find dates for those items.
That sounds
Right, and
great.
I did give Ken the list of both of all the goals that all 3 of us commissioners did, and asked him to massage those to see if there was anything specific in there that maybe 2 or 3 commissioners wanted that would turn into a potential work session item. So,
Right.
Ken, I guess you have directions on that one then.
All right.
Great,
too.
thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
And just keep it, we do have a work session scheduled with the clerk for next week to talk about the vote tally
Okay, yeah.
system, and I do know, I'm hoping that in March, one of the 3 dates in March, we'll be ready to review a scope of work for potential RFP for the space needs analysis. RFP that we'll be putting out later this spring, so,
So sometime in March.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So I think you can go ahead and continue to work on that, Ken, and
all right,
bring back maybe at least for the rest of the first quarter, maybe into the second quarter, what you see as what a
Right.
work session schedule would look like.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Anything else you want to bring up, Ken?
No, I think I've.
Okay, if not, then we'll move on to department reports, and we're here to have, thankfully, here to have John Phelan here to give us his, from Public Works. So John, once you sat down, now you gotta get up again. So bring all your paraphernalia with you and come on up to the middle. Oh yeah, you can have a couple minutes, John. Take your time. We don't want you hurting yourself with all your tubes and cords and everything.
Yeah, first off, tomorrow I get to see if this thing took. They actually put, a week ago, they put a shark skin graft over the top of it, and then last weekend they put a my skin over the top of it, and I'm not even going to tell you where they took my skin from, so.
That's okay, you got
Thank
HIPAA.
you.
Don't have to
You
share.
get a vision of the shark too, John.
I like the shark skin thing.
Yeah, it actually surprised me that they do that. It's the epidural, or it's the underside of the shark
Yeah.
skin
Yeah.
that they do.
Wow.
Wow.
I was wondering what the Greenpeace people thought about them killing a shark for my arm, but we won't go down that road either. I'm going to update you on the building first of all. Right now, the mechanical staff has moved into the building. Awesome. It's starting to come together very well. We are going to start moving some of the administrative this week into it. We elected to do it one person at a time rather than take a Saturday or something and move everybody just for the lack of help on Saturdays. So right now, by the end of the next 2 weeks, I would imagine all of us will be in the new building. I do have some final cost. I wasn't prepared today to bring them forth to you, but I will here within the next 2 weeks bring the final cost. But I think you'll be very pleased at where it actually came in at. It's not much over budget, and the fact is that we added 20 feet to the building, and we added a restroom to the building, and we added some extra lighting and so on for the parking lot. So some of that stuff I'll explain when we get the total bill, but I actually saw it today, or a draft of it today, and I was very pleased with it. I'm on the wrong page. Laughlin Bridge, right now on the February the 15th, we will be getting a set of plans from WH Pacific. If everything's right, which I assume they would be, it's a pretty simple bridge, then we would go out to bid very shortly after that. So we're still on schedule for that. DeYoung Bridge is open as we speak, or at least they're removing the barricades as we speak. So by the evening, that bridge will be open. And again, that came in at or right at budget, and they did a nice job for us out there. Right now, I think that you're probably aware of it, and I did ask his permission to announce today that Bill Gilley, the county engineer, will be retiring. I'm not sure if you guys want to meet and see what that succession plan would look like on that, or what my ideas are on that, but I'll leave that up to you. We did go out, and we are still actively trying to recruit a roadmaster. Frankly, we've had very few applicants for it, 2 to date, and we're leaving that advertisement open right now to see if there is any interest coming in. Our budget will reflect hiring a supervisor also that you'll see later on in our budget presentation. This will be to replace or to have Roy Panchow mentor this position for a while before he takes over. Excuse me 1 minute.
And John, that's kind of part of your succession plan too thing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, we started with that, and as you saw with my accident, our succession plan did work. There was very little, we didn't drop the ball once with my accident, so, I mean, it is.
Yeah.
We are interviewing this week 2 George Fox University interns. We're going out early because I wanted a chance to see what was there instead of later. Most of those, as busy as the economy is, those young men and women have jobs within the next month or promises of jobs. So we will be we'll have 2 interns for a couple months, which will be a good mentoring for the intern coming in. Another thing that we probably should sit down and talk to is about the turning over of the old Sheridan Bridge to the city of McMinnville. They've given us 3 options, and I think it's a choice that you folks, the commissioners, should make rather than myself. The MIPs, we're about ready to bring those to you. We did have a couple changes from the list. I think I'm not sure. Did I bring the list forward to you folks?
I don't know, we did look at the RIAC report, but I don't know if we looked at
I don't
the
believe it was
actual.
in
I don't
there.
think we saw
We
that.
didn't
I mean,
have a list from you.
I've seen it, but we should get it to them too.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry, it feels like I dropped the ball getting it to you.
Commissioner Kula and I went to a meeting up at Ribbon Ridge, and we offered them a chance to participate and pave that whole 3 miles. And I thought it was more of a bluff, to be quite honest with you, and they took my bluff, so we will be paving the 3 miles. They will be, with your approval, I should say, they will be paying for 1 mile of their own paving up there. The weather, the way it is right now, we have been starting, we started this morning at 2:30. I expect to start that shift again tonight. Tonight's supposed to be 26. If we get any moisture between now and then, it is going to be treacherous tomorrow morning. So we will be starting early. We've had 5 trucks out. We've had a few accidents, but very few. I think we had 2 last night. One wasn't related. It was a log truck. The other was a car that went off somewhere by Mountaintop. And that's about all I've got, unless you have any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead,
Question.
go ahead, Mary.
John, I want to thank you and your crews because getting to work in higher elevations is difficult, but to see what time you guys must have been out there, and every year we see that, it makes such a difference. It's we hear about it, we get emails about it. It's just we really appreciate that they're out there when it's dark and cold and snowy and icy. So once again, thank you. You guys do a great job.
And I was telling the commissioner this morning that I typically brief you folks or send you an email or a text, and I'll start doing that again if there's any change in our schedules or where we're at on that.
Casey, anything?
Well, from the other end of the lowlands in the county, I've already told John this, but to thank the crew for the work they do on our county roads too. And we can tell when we go from county road to state road to county road again. So
Yeah, we've actually Sunday, we were actually laying down after the rain, laying a lot of de-icer down, so it's helped. We've got a new truck that's out there, so we're a lot more efficient at it than we were last year.
yeah. And then John, thank you for really pushing on the Laughlin Bridge too. I know that between you and Christian getting things moving along really quickly
He looks like he just got out of bed.
This is his resting face. So thank you. I know there's a lot of people who want that.
I'm sorry,
road, so.
Christian.
That's all right, John.
Just a couple comments, John. It was funny because you talked about how good of a job our crew does, and I think going out at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning is interesting. But what was really interesting, I got a call this morning from a concerned citizen wanting to know what it would take for the county to take over the de-icer and sanding of Highway 18, because it was pretty evident that the state didn't care. So wanted the county to take over Highway 18, and they said, well, you're at it, can you go from Grand Round all the way to McMinnville? And so I thought that was a great testament, because he says, your county roads are always so good, you know, and everything. Now if we could just talk the state into doing just as good of a job. So I think that's really congratulations to you and your staff. Just a couple questions, John. Do you know, we've had 2 applicants for the roadmaster's position, you said?
Correct.
Can you lay your hands to any particular reason why well, it seems like it would be a pretty desirable job, why we've only had 2 applicants for that position?
Commissioner, right now with the economy, those type of people that were looking to fill that position are usually project managers on private sector jobs, and frankly, right now they pay more. The roadmaster that we had before gets 2 or 3 months off in the wintertime when it's slow time. The benefit package is not superior to ours, but equal to ours. So once the economy, and it has a tendency, as you well know, to go up and go down. Once the economy goes down, that job becomes a lot more attractive. I don't want to get in a big hurry, because that is your future, or that is Yamhill County's future, that position, as far as being able to manage that road crew and to do a good job for the county.
You know, that's what I thought. It was probably an economic kind of a situation was the reason why. And then the only last thing I have, John, is I really want to congratulate you for setting up years ago the working relationship with using George Fox students. I think that's been a win-win situation for both the county and for the students, and I know the work with the Public Works building and everything we got out of George Fox students has just been tremendous, and I think it's probably saved Yamhill County quite a bit of money, actually, in all reality. So I just want to congratulate you and thank you for the work you've done with making sure that program continues to go on, and we continue working with George Fox students to get that
It
done.
has, Commissioner, been a very good program. As you said, we've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on just those 2 projects between the parking lot and the building itself.
Yeah.
Let alone every year we give them a different project. This year it's Stag Hollow. They're doing the cuts and fills up there, and in our MIP list, you'll see that the improvement of that road is going to be asked in our for next year's budget.
Oh, good. Thanks, John. Any more questions for John? Comments, Casey?
I did have, but maybe.
No, good.
Okay, I was trying to remember the order.
Any order I say.
John,
Any
you
order
mentioned filling us in on the succession plan thing. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to for Bill Gillies' position and other?
Well,
or,
Bill
or did
Gill-
you have more than what you mentioned?
No, actually, Commissioner, the county engineer, my direction right now, unless otherwise not approved by you folks, is what I would like to do is to get an engineer on retainer, and then an hourly rate. Of course, I've got to run this through county council also. Other cities have done that. I think Amity, and I'm going to say Lafayette, I think, have shared engineers, and it seems to work out very well with them. Right now, the position that you will have to fill is the county surveyor. And by law, you have to fill that position. There is no ORS, in my understanding, for the county engineer position.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a need for that position to review plats and so on and so forth. So I would like to do a retainer is all, but not hire a full-time position.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing, you were talking about the cost of the building and how, things have come up that made it be higher than you anticipated. But do you remember what the gentleman said on RIAC? He asked you, what would it cost? And the comment that was made is from this fellow who was an applicant to be on RIAC was,
Well, he actually was a commercial realtor,
Right.
and we told him the square footage, and he told me what the cost were, about half of what the cost should have been to build that building.
Yeah.
We have had interest. Grand Ron has come to look at the building. They would like to kind of follow suit of what we did on a smaller building. There's one other, too, that has inquired about the design bid and how we went out for it and so on,
Yeah.
so.
so that was encouraging to
That
hear from
was.
somebody with experience.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would very much enjoy showing you folks through the building. I took Ken through last week.
Last week.
It's going to be a very functional, it's not overly done, it's just a nice building. It's going to be a nice, comfortable spot. The shop itself with 13 bays in it, and being able to look out and see what everybody's doing, just the safety aspect of that is going to be huge.
Yeah, Ken, just a question for you.
Mhm.
What's the potential next couple weeks or after everybody's moved in of doing a work session in the conference room, like our Public Works, or we can get a tour and everything and do it as Public Works at a work session?
Can do. I can.
I think
I
that
can
way
work
we can
with
get
John.
everybody out there together, John, and look at the building. I know I've been in there a couple times when you haven't been there, and I'm surprised because it's definitely not a fancy building, but very usable. The offices are nice. The shop area is very nice, but you'd think from outside it would be a very expensive building, and it's not. Very usable and simple building, but very well done.
Yeah, as
So-
the Commissioner Clulo said, that this realtor was amazed at what we have per square foot
Yeah.
costing into
Yeah.
that building.
Okay, anything else for John?
And actually, I have a 3:30 appointment with Bill Gilly and a former commissioner on Thursday. So if we could always calendar it if anybody wants to join us. So,
Okay, any other?
but thank you,
questions?
John.
Any other
very
questions
much.
for John?
Best wishes on the
Keep
reveal on your arm tomorrow.
Yeah, and we don't want to see you come in with a shark fin on your arm or anything, John, so.
Yeah, I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Don't know how much more of it I can put up with,
Yeah.
frankly. It's almost been 9 months now, and it's just, it's overwhelming. But if I get to keep the hand, I guess
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah, but every couple of weeks you look much better, John.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, thank you.
You look
Let
doing
us
really
know
good.
how it goes, and thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, Commissioners, that takes us next to our preliminary consent agenda, and we have the minutes of the November 8th, December 6th, December 11th, December 18th, and December 20th meeting. We also have the approval of several grants, 5 grants on our consent agenda that we want to talk about. Has everybody had a chance to look at the consent agenda?
Commissioner, just to clarify,
Yeah.
they're not grants, they're approval of amendments.
Or
for
contracts,
and
right.
One contract employment agreement, and then the new construction agreement with Andy Metcalf.
And the number 6 was the follow-up to the notice of intent to award. Is that
Correct. Correct.
Just trying to,
Right. So they're really contracts and grants under that category.
yeah.
So
That's- you're
do any of the commissioners have anything they would like to be removed? And then we also, have committees. We have the approval of changes to the Parkway Committee, appointing Sal Peralta, appointing Stan Primusich, and designating Kelly Menke as a member at large. And then number 8, appointment of Leslie Dale, John Heiser, William Koenig, and Mary Newell to the Ambulance Service, or ASA, Committee for 3-year terms. So does the commission have anything we'd like to remove off the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, then those will go forward for Thursday's meeting on the consent agenda. Okay, that takes us to non-consent agenda items, other topics for discussion. And the first thing we have is the staff report and discussion on the High Heaven Gate. So Ken, do you want to start with the staff report, or does Christian want to start with that?
So I don't know, Ken, if the goal is to simply get consensus from the board about what's going to be discussed on Thursday, or if we're going to have that larger discussion now.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I guess he was kind of ambiguous with that one.
No, I think that's what we're looking for is.
So there's a draft board order in the packet. Really, the only substantive change would be adding an additional condition to have Weyerhaeuser be responsible for providing gates, and we still have details to work out around exactly how that would happen.
Providing keys.
Providing keys, what did I say?
Gates.
Providing gates.
Providing keys to gate number 2 to property owners within a vicinity of the gate upon their request for emergency use only, but not for recreational purposes. So that's how the additional condition reads now. I guess if we want to talk about whether or not that's largely what the board is looking for, or if there are specific items that you'd like to see added between now and Thursday. I have clarified in the meantime that, and I will add them to number 3, McMinnville Rural Fire District also has keys to the gate. And then I did get a call from Weyerhaeuser because I shared this draft with them as well. And I'll clarify in condition number 4 that the requests for the keys would be made to Weyerhaeuser.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
No
Nan.
question. So, when we talked, we were discussing the possibility of having a box that contained keys. Is
Yeah,
that
I
still
think
an option?
what they're talking about doing is putting like a realtor lockbox somewhere around the gate, giving interested property owners the combination to the lockbox, get the keys, and then, I'm not sure how this works, but apparently the gate has the ability to contain multiple locks on the gate, for which only one key is required to a particular lock to actually unlock the gate. So even though there are 4, 5, 6 locks, only one key to one of those 6 locks can actually open the gate. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Dave looked like he understands.
So that way they could provide access to that one lockbox to homeowners to have that one key. They wouldn't need to have all 5 keys.
And the other question I had was, I wasn't clear on Hancock. Did I miss something in the body of this board order?
So apparently they have
Thank you.
purchased the
Hancock
forest
lumber.
land that used to belong to Boise Cascade, I believe. So now beyond the gate or between the 2 gates, you have Weyerhaeuser land and Hancock land.
Okay, I'd not heard that reference before.
Yeah, that came from Weyerhaeuser as well.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
information I got from there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Casey? Discussion?
Well, thank you for.
Because I know we'll probably have more discussion Thursday, but I think we could have some discussion
Yeah.
now, so.
Yeah, well, thank you for drawing this up. I know that I expressed that I'd like to see the board order, the board orders, so the original Weyerhaeuser, or the original Willamette Industries, and then the Weyerhaeuser ones rescinded. And so I just want to put that out there, and I've talked a lot with the folks at Public Works and their position, and I didn't want to put John on the spot, but he knew that I was going to be talking about it today, was that public roads should be available to the public. The Public Works, and this is pretty much across the board at Public Works, the view is that they can't take care of the roads, and the roads should be accessible to everybody. We all pay taxes, gas taxes, and property taxes, and that keeping the keys to just a small, as opposed to this situation where only a small number of people have the keys, and they somehow get to be different than the rest of us, that the gate should be opened and locked open, so that it's still there in case of some kind of unforeseen emergency. And so I appreciate that perspective, and that is Public Works perspective as well.
Okay,
Just
Mary?
a clarification that property taxes don't in any way fund any road maintenance.
That's right.
But And also, I know, I'm just thinking in terms of the testimony that we had from people who said that they were concerned about the vandalism and the garbage and that whole thing, and so that kind of resonated with me. But I do appreciate what staff has done in terms of making this workable.
And just a reminder, it is a public road, but not a county-maintained county road.
Yep.
So it isn't a road that Public Works would be working on, and that was another bit of information that Weyerhaeuser did share, is that it has been much easier for them to keep that road in serviceable condition when they're not having to worry about all of the recreating that used to happen up there with vehicles wearing down the road and requiring them to go in more frequently and spend more time and money to maintain it. So if it were open, there might need to be a discussion had with Weyerhaeuser and the county about whether or not the county would resume some of that responsibility, which would then have to be factored into all of the other work that Public Works.
And according to the institutional knowledge at the Public Works, which is to say Bill Gilly, which I just keep thinking about all the things that he knows that we need to get from him.
Well, this would
because he'll
actually-
pull things out of
This
just-
will actually be his second retirement.
That's
because
right.
He
Exactly.
retired several years ago and then came
Yeah,
back
he
to
retired
work.
as Public Works
to work.
Director, so.
Well, no, he
um,
retired in his current position.
Oh, that's right. And then came back.
2-3 years ago, and then has come back part-time since then. So I guess maybe he's really serious now about.
Right. So he was saying that when I talked with him earlier today, that the county has done work on High Heaven past the gate. Historically, they took care of that road.
Correct, and it was a county designated road. But
Yeah.
after the gate went up, formal action was taken by the board to
Right.
change the designation.
Yeah.
And so now, by statute, we couldn't use road fund dollars on that road, and we couldn't have Public Works maintain the road without specific board action,
Yeah.
again, to instruct them to do so.
Yeah. Thank you for putting it in context.
I guess just a couple comments I have, and this is one I really struggle with, because on one hand, I'm very concerned with the dumping and the trash. And I guess I'd have a little bit easier trouble making up, a little easier situation making up my mind if the road was either, number one, a dead-end road or did not lead to any other public lands. But it does lead to other public lands. Well, and then looking at the designation of the road, being whether it be a local access road or a county road, by the ORS statutes, the county is not obligated to maintain a road that's a local access road. If it was upgraded to a county road, we'd have to maintain, use road dollars to maintain it. So what I come down to is weighing the potential of people's right to public access to the potential of dumping. We just had that one, that motor home or trailer dumped up on Baker Creek Road against any citizen's right to use a public access road. I think we could accomplish that by making sure, and I don't know how it would be posted, that whether it be the ORS quoted or what, that this road beyond where the gate is classified as a local access road and is not maintained by Yamhill County, because then if Weyerhaeuser would decide for their own logging purposes to be able to use that road to get into their tracts of property, that would be up to them to decide how they wanted to maintain that road, and it would not be our responsibility. That being said, I have a problem myself. I like what Weyerhaeuser came up with. I think it's an opportune time, but how we can arbitrarily, and I was the one that suggested, talking to Christian, that if we were to set a boundary, that would probably be the Willis Road and High Heaven Road intersection, because people below that have multiple ways out. People above that, if the fire occurred above Willis Road and High Heaven Road intersection, the rest of High Heaven Road going west is the only way out. And so as I looked at that, I don't know what to do about the dumping, but I firmly believe that we should not be gating that road. I don't like the idea. I like gating it and working it out, but unless we control the keys and everybody could get a key, I don't know how we could choose. And then the enforcement of the emergency use only. How do we as a county ever enforce emergency use only? How can we, if somebody went up there and used it for other that had a key and used it for other non-emergency use it for recreating and everything. How do we ever enforce that? I don't think that's I personally don't think that's enforceable. So, I guess my feeling is I like Commissioner Cool, what you said of leaving the gate in place, but leaving it in the opened position, and then we'll look and see what kind of problem we do have with issues with dumping and everything. If we find it necessary to close the gate back down, we'll close the gate back down.
Sure.
I do feel that all the other people testifying in favor of keeping it gated were definitely correct, but being it's a public road and it's not a dead end and it does lead to other public access property, I just am really torn on this, but I think we should leave the gate open. So that's my discussion. So Mary?
Mr. Chair, I would just add that we did hear testimony that we are currently seeing issues of dumping and that type of thing. So to say, well, we'll leave it open and see if that happens, if it's already been happening, we know that it's not unusual and it's not likely to stop if the gate were then open.
Well, we know it's not happening above the gate because they can't
Right.
get in above
Exactly.
the gate.
So that we're just, so that
so,
would be my addition.
I guess I would just weigh in that,
Yes.
because we're kind of getting into where we're kind of deliberating on what the action would be.
Yeah.
And that'd probably be better for Thursday.
I was wondering.
and,
Yeah, so we've had
Yeah.
our discussion. I think bring it back.
Depending on
It all
what we're gonna
depends.
put
I
on
mean,
the
if-
agenda.
If I'm hearing from the board, I would be coming back with a different board order
Right.
on Thursday.
Yeah.
It would basically, if what I'm hearing is right, I mean, if you want the gate locked or locked in the open position.
Or just open, left
unlocked,
open, not
I
locked in
suspect
the open
Weyerhaeuser
position.
will say they don't want to be responsible for installing and maintaining a gate that needs to be permanently unlocked. And so they may very well withdraw their request, and you would simply, at that point, say you're rescinding the permit,
Yeah.
and then have them remove the gate. I could see that as a possible response from them, rather than saying, well, we're not, we don't want to be responsible for maintaining a gate that is going to be constantly or permanently in the unlocked position. So if that's what the board wants to do, if I'm on a hearing is you want to repeal their permit to have these two gates on High Heaven Road, then that would be the board order that I would
Draft.
prepare and bring back to you.
And both
for
of those gates are
consideration on
both those gates
Thursday.
are in Yamhill County. The upper end of the gate is also in Yamhill County.
Because it's like northeast, actually.
Vaughn Road up in that
Yeah.
direction.
The original
someplace.
permit was permitting two gates.
Yeah.
One on both ends of High Heaven Road.
That's
that-
what I would like to see.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'd have to agree
I would
with
be
that.
opposed to that, but it looks like it would be something that would,
Okay, so, Weyerhaeuser has provided written comment so far. I'll inform them of the direction that we're headed. They may have some more written comment, or they may have someone here on Thursday to
Okay.
chat further with you, because, again, after the hearing, the direction I thought we were going was to keep it
Yep.
locked, but to find a way to provide some keys to folks in the immediate vicinity. But if we're changing direction, I want to make sure that they, as well as anybody else, have
And
an
to tell you the
opportunity
truth,
to
Christian, I,
comment.
as one, was leaning the direction of keeping it locked. But the more research I did in what other counties do and how they do it, I say if it was a dead-end road and it didn't lead to any other public property, I probably would.
Well, and the
go
point that
differently.
Weyerhaeuser's also made is you can get to all of the publicly owned
But
land
going
through
all
a different
down
road.
into the valley and back up
It's a
around.
different
and-
road. It
So-
takes longer, and this is the most direct route.
Yeah.
But there is no public land in this 2.5
Not in, but on the
mile
other end
stretch.
there, on the other end
There is
there
one
is.
small public area that almost touches the road, but it doesn't quite. And beyond that, or besides that, it's privately owned.
And Commissioner Sterrett, thank you. I wasn't a commissioner yet, but I remember you brought up the dumping, the no dumping sign suggestion, and it seems like this would be a good opportunity to bring that back up, as it were.
yeah, that was something that Public Works is going to take a look at. But
Okay.
we know that signs typically don't keep people from doing behaviors that only gates can keep them from doing. And it's a little confusing because it's like we gave staff a direction of where we wanted them to go with this board order, and this is what they came back with, and now we're saying, never mind. And so I'm not really following how things are going these days, because it seems like we're doing an awful lot of that. Yeah, and then we get to talking about it, and they do what we ask them to do, and then we say, nah, I changed my mind. So I'm not clear.
Well, I really didn't change my mind until I saw what their response was, and if we have to put in, we can't enforce the emergency use only.
No.
We can't enforce that. And to keep people out from dumping, are we really punishing all of our citizens? Or are we really aiming it towards those citizens that do the dumping? And it seems like to me that I guess we're just punishing all the citizens for maybe the actions of a few, and I don't know if that's right either, so.
I can't tell you what Weyerhaeuser told me is there was a boat recently dumped on Baker Creek. It cost them $3,000 to dispose of it. So that is a significant concern.
Yeah.
And that was on their portion of Baker Creek where the gate, above where the gate used to be.
No, beyond the gate, I guess they unlock
beyond
and
the gate.
that gate is locked.
That's
and then
it.
unlocked
They
at certain
open,
times
they
of the
lock
year.
that seasonally.
Yeah.
They lock it
So
during high.
it was unlocked,
But
and then
yeah.
immediately there was a boat dumped. And the tow trucks wouldn't take it, the landfill wouldn't take it until they remediated asbestos and other hazardous materials in the boat, and then they could dump it.
Right.
So that is, as we've talked about, that is a significant concern, along with fire and illegal trespass, illegal camping. So all
Yep.
the things we talked about that
Yep.
led to the gates being put in place.
I guess my other concern about it is, and maybe this is just a philosophical concern, is in order, and Weyerhaeuser can do anything, they can gate any of their property they want to gate. Don't have a problem, it's their property. But to charge a fee to get to their property, a permit to get to their property, to recreate on their property, but yet they give them a gate for a local access road so they can get their property, so they can charge them a fee.
Right.
I just really, because the Yamhill County doesn't recognize anything from that fee. I mean, they charge them that fee for their property, and we don't charge them, say we want a certain percentage of that fee to help keep that road clean.
Right.
That's,
So if the gates are taken off, would the board be reconsidering whether or not to change the designation of that road again back to a county road?
I certainly
Or would
wouldn't.
the expectation be that Weyerhaeuser or landowners along the road be responsible for the maintenance?
I certainly wouldn't. My thing would be that if Weyerhaeuser wanted to come back and said, even though it's gonna stay, to me, it has to stay a local access road, does no good to upgrade it to a county road. We have other roads in the county that are much more critical, I think we would, if we were gonna upgrade them,
Right.
that they need to be upgraded. But my thing about it is if Weyerhaeuser gave the county a certain percentage to pay for the clean, even though it's theirs, to help it when we have to have public works or a private individual help move that or clean up that area, fine, but I think I think Weyerhaeuser is really getting a freebie on us, is what they're getting.
And
So you'd entertain the possibility of cost sharing some of the removal and dumping with Weyerhaeuser? Is that what I'm hearing, or? no?
If the road was open, because if it isn't,
I mean, would you like me to discuss that possibility with Weyerhaeuser, or?
I'm okay, but the number one, the gate would be open, but a cost sharing for them to get to.
I suspect
there.
that the gate would be removed.
Yeah.
There would no longer be a gate. But
Unless they transferred the gate to the county, but then what would we do with it?
And as far as you brought up the question of county road versus public road, and I thought that maybe one thing I will do is RIAC is either this Thursday or the next Thursday, and I'll ask that committee what their views of that are. I mean, we traditionally ask them when issues of roads come up too. The RIAC also is interested in developing on their own a proposed ordinance for the process of putting in or taking out gates. They expressed that on their own, that they'd like to be part of that, because there are a lot of other gates in the county. So,
I guess, Casey, my thing about it is, and I've never seen the bylaws of the RIAC committee or the board order. I'd want to make sure really that anything we let RIAC do was included in what their responsibilities are and
Yeah,
not
exactly.
overextend
looking at
their
them.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
But we have other roads in the county, to me, that would need to be upgraded to county roads much before
Yeah,
High
I
Heaven
agree.
Road would be
Yeah.
upgraded to a county. I'm dealing with one now, which I won't talk about, that I think is needed to be upgraded to a county road just because of the amount of traffic it gets.
Mhm.
But this one, I think, if RIAC wants to do that, I don't want to put this off any longer. I want, the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
people
I don't
both
either.
ways have gotten,
Yeah.
they've been dealt with this for years. So what we do in the future, what we might do in the future, doesn't bore me as much as what we do now.
Yeah.
All right, so just to recap, I'll follow up with Weyerhaeuser, but unless they're willing for some reason to leave the gate there in an unlocked position, in which case they might be interested in retaining their permit. Otherwise, I would be coming back with a board order to rescind the 2001 permit.
Mhm.
Because I would assume they might want to keep their permit in some form. I just don't know what form that would.
I'll find out. And if they do, then it'll come back with some modified conditions to
Mhm.
leave the gate unlocked.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they're interested in just removing the gate, rescinding the permit makes the most sense to me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you
Okay.
very much, Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, the board direction at that first meeting, I was still really learning.
No, that's fine. It's totally fine. If that's where the majority of the board wants to go, that's where we'll go.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you for the work on it too. I appreciate your
Sure.
wordsmithing.
Okay, thank you, Christian. That brings us up to item number 2 under non-consent agenda items or other topics for discussion, which is the discussion of the Connect Oregon 6 grant. So, there's been a lot of different talk that's gone around about what we're doing with the grant, who's supporting the grant, who isn't supporting the grant, why the reasons we're supporting, why the reasons we may not be supporting it. So what I thought we'd do today is just have a little discussion about whether we should turn the grant back on, whether we should keep it and move forward, what are the potential liabilities, or if we continue to move forward. And I've done quite a bit of research into this over the last month, and I feel bad that this never should have gotten this far. It should have been taken care of 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, but it wasn't. So what I want to do is just have a discussion between staff and the 3 commissioners on where do we go with the
Fantastic.
Connect 6 grant.
I was
So,
hoping that it was your item since I didn't put it on there
yeah.
for once.
So anyway, Mary, would you like to start? You have anything you want to talk about?
No, I think since the very inception of the whole idea of the trail, I've always had that question that I brought up about what happens, what's our liability, where do we go if these particular milestones aren't met, and for me, I've always questioned our liability and what that would entail. I think it's significant. I think that we can wish all we want that there is no liability, but especially now with a project that's in litigation, a project that, I've always said we don't have, as you've brought up, Commissioner, a master plan. We don't have a cost projection as to what this project would cost. There are just so many unknowns and so many considerations that for us to continue to put ourselves in jeopardy in terms of these particular grants, I think I think all politics originates from emotion. There's a lot of emotion here. Everybody, people say we want this trail. But I think it's important for us to sort of be adults and put aside emotion and take a look at the hard facts that are associated with taking on a liability that we really, at this particular point, would be, I feel, irresponsible to take on and incur a risk There's no question about the fact that we're getting sort of the bum's rush on this. I got an email from somebody who says, it's your job to get money. No, it's their job. If their job, I can't read this one. If there is money, your job is to get it, okay? And I think that particular mentality is what's sort of that, we've got money on the table, we've got to get it at all costs, even if there's liability to the county. And I think we need to just really put the brakes on till we know where we're going with this.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Casey?
Commissioner or Chair Olson, I'd love to actually hear what you are
Certainly.
Are thinking about, because
Certainly.
I think you've got a lot of thoughts here.
Here's what I'm thinking, and I was really concerned, and I don't think a lot of whether they be opponents or proponents understood that the way the grant was structured, that we couldn't start, we had to finish construction by the end of May of next year.
Mhm.
So we're talking 15 months out.
Right.
And I identified just basically over the last couple weeks, 14 major items that I felt either had the potential of being completed or had to be completed in order for us to comply. And that's why my vote of, not to move forward with OBEC last time, because I think if you look at just the scope of things, if you look at any permitting we may have to do, whether they're a floodplain permit, construction permits, the design, the engineering, then the construction, how you do all that in a 15-month period. And then, so that led me believe, and I think from Commissioner Sterrett's standpoint, is I separated three different issues. I separated the land use mitigation, what came back from Luba, because that's one issue. The master plan, which was a whole total issue, and this, how we proceed with this Connect Oregon grant, which is three issues. Sometimes they'll all come together, but they're really three different issues in my opinion. I felt pretty good that based on the remand from Luba that we would be able to mitigate the reasons it was remanded back to the county. I think from a master plan issue, we're moving forward with the master plan, and I think information that would have been in the design and engineering of the bridges could have been coupled with the master plan, because we already have a lot of information and use that.
Right.
My only biggest reason I voted no was I had to really look at one particular issue with this, and one particular issue only. If we did the engineering in design, and I felt pretty confident we could get that done by the end of the grant requirements, could we complete the bridge also? And if not, what was our liability? Engineering was estimated to be any place between, and design, any place between $450,000 and $500,000. What was the risk is if we didn't do the construction itself, of us having to pay back the state of Oregon $450,000 to $500,000 because we could not comply with the grant. And I wasn't willing to take a $500,000 risk. And so as I look at this more and, what would be the potential of getting a construction-only extension that would allow us to move construction forward? If I look at what it would take to potentially impact our capability in the future of getting a construction-only grant, or if they'd rewrite the grant for engineering and design only and not for construction, so we can apply for a construction grant. What I'm hearing from staff, it sounds like very unlikely that ODOT would be willing to do that.
Right, that's what I understood.
Well, that left me to where we had $500,000 we put the county taxpayers at risk of paying. And then this morning I had a meeting with our administrator, and he actually, to tell you the truth, came up with a concept that I had never thought about, and I'll let him talk about it a little bit, that may very much alleviate, not all, but very much alleviate the major risks to Yamhill County,
Okay.
and allow us to move forward with OBEC. So Ken, you want to explain what your the discussions we had, please?
Well, because I think the big thing, because we have the difficulties with discussing this grant and the timeline, because we had several things as far as the acquisition and, some of the other processes that we've been going through that, we've already gotten, one extension. And admittedly, it's really difficult when talking to ODOT because we really haven't, we haven't awarded the engineering and design yet, so we've been kind of in a holding pattern, and we haven't been submitting for reimbursements or making progress on the grants, and one of the things that we talked about, and I believe the idea, that would be is, it's going to require some more conversations or discussions with both ODOT and then also possibly with OBEC, is looking at the scope of work and doing the scope of work or in a manner that really puts the emphasis or the focus on the design and construction of the Stag Hollow Bridge, putting that before, instead of, I think most people looking at it, design the 3 bridges and then start construction. Whereas if working with OBEC, potentially you do focus the effort on the Stag Hollow Bridge, and then while they go through the construction and that work, and then go back and do the design work for the other 2, because really the outcome on this grant was design of 3 bridges and construct the one at Stag Hollow. Yeah. So it would be, what that might do for a timeline, but then also keeping in mind that I think there is language for, in further discussions that we could have with ODOT to get more information about if we're able to pursue this and really focus the efforts about meeting the timelines and then getting extensions at a later date. That being said, and I'm going to look at Christian, but, there's going to be risk with this, and I can't say that there is, no risk associated with, meeting the deadline or getting the, I can't say that, but what I'd like to do is have some more discussions with ODOT and OBEC, because then otherwise we're in this holding pattern, and, we need to be able to give ODOT a response on what we're going to do. What actions are we going to take on this? And, if we're going to withdraw, then I'd like to let them know that we're going to do that. If we're going to charge forward and see if we can work and meet the milestones that are in the grant, and then see what extension possibilities are. Because I know a lot of it, the possibility, like for any grant, the possibility of getting an extension depends on how much progress you're making on the project. And, and so to be able to talk to OBEC, to take the next step, to look at that statement of work, to look at timelines and start to hammer out that would all be hammered out as part of the contract, that would hopefully, give us some more answers to that. And then also having those conversations with ODOT until, we're working with OBEC, we're trying to hammer this out.
Yeah, my firm belief after talking to Ken was that if we go along a linear approach, like it's said now, there's no way we can have construction done by end of May of next year. Sure. But if we look at working with ODOT and OBEC, but we won't know until staff has a chance to talk to OBEC and ODOT of rephasing, like Ken said, rephasing the work, where we first work on the design and engineering and construction of the Stag Hollow Bridge, and then while it's being constructed, move back to the design and engineering of the other 2 bridges. I think we could probably minimize our impact, although it'll never go away, but minimize our impact or our liability and potentially have the bridge constructed in 15 months.
And we'd get to that substantial completion. Isn't that the language?
No, it's not substantial completion. It actually says completion of.
Yeah, but in terms of how they would evaluate the project for purposes of giving an extension.
Right.
I think it's around that idea of substantial completion.
Yeah, you talked about that the last time.
Yeah, and if we can move that direction, and we've started construction of the bridge, or we're into construction of the bridge, I think an extension to finish construction is not out of the question. I think, and then while it's being constructed, working on the design and engineering, because different groups within OBEC do it anyway,
Yeah.
that we can continue and go on a simultaneous path if we phase it differently. But those are discussions that Ken really has to have with, and Kerry have to have with ODOT and OBEC.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but in, when you presented was it their proposal to us a couple weeks ago?
OBEC's?
OBEX?
Oh, that's-
There was a specific mention in there of, this is one alternative that we could do. They presented that as a possibility in there. So clearly they're aware of it.
Well, I must have missed it because it wasn't real clear, because I don't remember it being stated that way.
I know
But anyway,
I think maybe even mentioned it twice, but.
I think Casey, to me, is, and somehow the word got out that we were going to vote on this Thursday at a formal meeting.
That's what yeah.
How, I don't know, because I don't think any of the commissioners put that word, I don't know where that word
No.
came from, whether we accept the grant or we deny the grant.
Right.
What I would be willing to do is turn it back, or to staff, and they've done such a good job, Kerry and Ken have done such a good job on this, is before we go in that direction, because I certainly don't want to lose the $1.2 million, but before we go in that direction, I'd certainly like to know if it could be, if OBEC feels it could be phased to the point where we can complete the significant goal, complete the goals of the
Yeah.
project without putting the county at a large liability.
Yeah, and I know that's, since they had that statement in there, I'm guessing they're open to it. I'm sorry to look through Wayne, and I don't remember the other man's name. At first, Wayne thought I was talking to him, by the way.
Yeah, so I think, Ken,
Sense of what you would like to see in terms of a change in the timeline that would be significant enough to make you feel comfortable with it?
not just the timelines, Kerry, but I also think a change in the phasing of how it's done, like like the design, engineering, and construction of one bridge, and then while that bridge is being constructed, dropping back to the design and engineering of the other two bridges, so they can be done simultaneously instead of doing design for three, engineering for three, and construction of one. Doing design for one, engineering for one, and construction of one, and while the construction going on, dropping back to do the design and engineering for the other two. So they can be done simultaneously. And I think Ken understands that.
So what we could do is, hearing consensus, staff can reconnect with both OBEC and ODOT, as far as, and get that additional information, and we could come back and report,
Right.
possibly as early as next week.
Yeah.
Or even if we wanted to, proceed and have a draft contract for the board to consider,
Based on that report.
we could do that too.
Because Christian, we don't, since it was a single source, since we only had one bidder, we don't have to do an intent to award, do we?
So a notice of intent to award is something that we've gotten into the habit of bringing before the board, especially in situations like this where we know that there might be some disagreement, for the board to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But it is not something that's technically required as part of the solicitation process.
So
What I should say is, a vote of the board to proceed to the notice of intent to award isn't technically required as part of the process. We have been going through that process, but we can go ahead and have discussions with OBEC and try to clarify some of these questions, and then bring back, as
A
Ken
contract.
said,
Mhm.
a draft proposal and a contract for the board to review and consider.
And that would be then approve. There would be.
Then you take
Potentially.
action on the approval of that contract,
Yeah.
correct?
Because, in all honesty, I don't want to lose the $1.2 million. I think this is great for our economic development. I certainly appreciate what Commissioner Starrett says, and I guess my thing is that when we first acquired the property, after we got our first extension, this is something that should have been done. We should have started on this. We acquired winter of 2017, didn't we?
November of 2017.
Yeah, see, right after that, we should have already been a year now into working on the design and engineering. And I don't want to, I just don't want to take a $500,000 risk, but if we can get those answers from OBEC, that would lessen that risk and allow so we can move forward on the master plan. It's a separate issue. The remand is a separate issue. This is strictly about the design engineering build contract. So if we can get adequate answers to that, I would feel comfortable moving forward with that, but not until we have those answers from OBEC or the state.
Commissioner Shea, it looks
Mr.
like you
Chair.
had
Yeah,
something.
go ahead. Your turn.
Just
Madam
a,
Chair.
just an
Madam
observation
Chair,
here.
sorry.
So allow me to have this observation. I've never seen in any other area where a commissioner has voted against something where it then came back around, and I'm gonna use the word an end run, to go to a commissioner and go, maybe you don't have that right. Let's talk about this. Let's see if we can flip you on this. So I've seen two particular instances where we have had trail-related no vote, to where, Mr. Chair, you voted against
That's correct.
something. And then there's been a discussion with staff or constituents, whatever, and then we are gonna revisit it. So to see this on the agenda, I was quite surprised. I thought it was something that we voted on, and that we decided it was not something we felt comfortable going forward on. And now to see, well, gee, maybe Commissioner Olson doesn't have it right. Let's sit down and see if we can reason with him. I find it a little bit disconcerting, and I think they're a transparency thing. Not necessarily saying that there's anything untoward, but I've never seen this happen in any other vote, in any other issue, except when it comes to trail things, and it's happened now twice.
It's happened in transit also.
But I'm seeing this, and it is a little bit disconcerting.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your comments. I can tell you this, both of my reasons have been strictly for, and I've explained this to a lot of people, have been strictly not because, and believe me, I am a pro-opponent of the trail, but it's been strictly a process issue. And the first time I voted no is to basically get some ordinances in the TSP that would change it so our chances of getting appeal was less. And that was the only reason for doing it. And this was just strictly because we looked at all. We didn't do any planning, which we should have done the last year. And I raised a red flag a year and a half ago about this coming to the issue, and I says, I'm gonna vote against it if it's nothing more but to get proper planning in place and proper process, because what the county actually, and I'm not gonna speak to anybody particular, I'm not gonna speak to elected or appointed officials, the process on the trail and what we've gone through for the last, at least since I've been commissioner, 2 years, and probably before that, has been one of the most misjointed, misguided. I think when the Friends of the Yamhill Trail did the charrettes and everything, it was a great process, and then it was determined that it was a county project, and we took it over. We've sat here a year now and couldn't get any progress to work with anybody, even with the ex-commissioner, to say, what are we doing about these dates? I mean, why isn't anybody tracking these? It just didn't happen. So if it took my no vote to get this back onto a right schedule, I don't feel bad about making that no vote whatsoever to get it back onto the right schedule so we can move forward and get it to something that I, as a commissioner myself, could support, so.
But is a no vote until it's not a no vote and it's a yes vote?
Maybe for you, it's not for me.
Well, it's happened twice, because,
Well, then it's happened twice.
you know, if we are concerned about these particular things, and the concern is what justifies a vote, they didn't cease to exist if we try to finesse it to make it, you know, oh, well, let's try this and let's try that. We already voted that this was not something we felt comfortable with. And now it's, well,
I felt what I didn't feel comfortable with was the process. And I will, if I have to vote no again on any issue, like I did with transit, because of the process we're going through is broken, I will continue to do that until the process is fixed.
so at this particular, I'm just a little confused as to where we stand right now. Is this saying that the no vote wasn't a no vote, we're just gonna rework it and see if we can get a different outcome?
The no vote was until I feel comfortable with the information that we can get from ODOT and OBEC for me to make the decision comfortably, one way or another, and it could be OBEC and ODOT can come back and I could still vote no. But until I feel comfortable that we're getting all the facts and all the information to make the correct decision, I will continue to do that if I need to. And hopefully now things are gonna get better, and we're gonna pay more attention to big projects and when dates are due and when things are doing. But I think that's one of the issues. It's a separate issue, but that's one of the issues with only having a 3-member commission. We can't talk to each other. And so, but anyway, but
Commissioner-
that's my feeling about it, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Commissioners, thank you for bringing it up. It's important, I think, to understand what another commissioner's thought process is. And I want to say that when I am here, my assumption is that both of you and that I am acting in good faith. And so I just want to put that out there, that I trust you, and I trust you. And I knew that you were going to say it was about policy. Because you're always about people, policy, and what's the third one? Process. I'm sorry, I knew it was going to be about process. But I want you both to know that from my perspective, I'm treating you, I trust you, and it's a good faith judgment. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
for both of you.
So that being said, I think what we've asked staff to do, or what by consensus, unless I'm wrong, Commissioner, to have those discussions, there won't be any vote Thursday, to have those discussions with
Right.
OBEC and ODOT, and come back to us and see if OBEC comes back or ODOT comes back and says no, there's no way we can comply with this grant by end of May of next year.
Yeah,
I'm still a no vote,
yeah.
because I won't put the citizens at a $500,000 risk.
Yeah, I understand that. I appreciate that. And thank you for thinking about that aspect
Yeah.
of it.
And Commissioner, I appreciate your comments. I
Thank you.
like it when you speak your heart. It really makes a lot, because as a team, that's what we really need. That's what we need to do.
Thank you.
So do we have any more comments on that item? If not, the next item we have is consideration of delegating authority to county council to take any steps necessary to terminate the litigation in Clackamas County for et al. Versus MERS et al. Christian
Yeah,
et al.
Commissioners, this comes directly out of the executive session we had last week. It's been determined by outside counsel that the best action going forward is to dismiss this case. They'd like to have something reflecting a formal action by the board. So if you're in agreement with this, this would be an item that would then get moved to the consent agenda
Yep.
for Thursday. And then you would act on it on Thursday, and then I could follow up with them and bring any other formal dismissal documents back to the board for your review.
Okay, do we have a consensus? We move that consent agenda? Okay, go ahead and move it to the consent agenda,
Thank you,
Christian.
Christian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we don't have any executive session scheduled that I know of, and so any commissioner updates or announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to say a couple of things. This weekend, we had an incident where we had a woman who had no place to go, and Safe Families and the Housing Authority were really instrumental in working with volunteers. And again, I just want to say that when you see agencies working together, and especially when they don't say, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm not going to answer my phone, but to be available all weekend, here was a woman who really had some serious issues and had her needs met. So kudos to them. And also want to let you know, I'll be testifying on a bill, House Bill 2115. As you know, I've had some concerns about the number of foster kids who are on psychiatric medications. We're going to have a bill that will require them to track this. I've tried for over, well, close to 9 months to get that information and have not been able to get that information. So that, in addition to today submitting another request for information from DHS for information on out-of-state placements of foster children. I've not gotten the information I requested a while ago, so we're trying it again, and we're sort of escalating things. So we just really need to look at the child welfare situation and really look at what we can do legislatively and what we are going to be doing in Salem.
They're doing out-of-state, I didn't even know that.
We
It was,
have-
I heard it on the radio, so I wanted to mention
Wow.
that to you at
I
some
didn't
point.
know.
Yeah,
didn't hear that.
there's been it's a very expensive proposition, so we've got,
But not a very good one at top of that.
$800,000
Mhm.
for 83 kids, and we can't
Send it to the Yamhill County, we'll take care of it. We'll
So,
take care of them.
but they're out of, out of state. So anyway, a couple of things like that,
Mhm.
and just really trying to work on these issues.
Okay, thank
And
you.
also, Waters of the U.S., were you on the
Modus?
conference call?
Yes.
We had a webinar.
Yeah.
And there's really going to be, I think, a significant change in how the Clean Water Act, Waters of the U.S. is administered. Hopefully,
Mhm.
we'll have the answer to the ethereal question, when is a ditch not a ditch? And so that's what we're working
Or
on
when is a
now.
puddle not a puddle?
And that's a navigable water or not. So NACO's doing a great job on
Yeah,
that.
they are. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kula?
Yeah, and I actually, what is the House Bill, what,
2115?
2115, there was some conversation about whether this board might be interested in supporting it as a board too. And so I was going to put that on next week's agenda, but
We can write a letter,
okay, great.
but.
So I think that
But I wanted to
definitely
wait
impacts
until we
us.
got
That is a
here,
county
so.
issue, and it definitely impacts us, no question
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I know AOC is, I think there's going to be something from AOC legislative, it's not one of our legislative priorities.
Not at this point, but I
Okay.
hope that it
Maybe
will be.
Monday we will talk
I
about
hope
it.
it
Yeah.
will be, yeah.
And one of I don't know, my legislative heroes sign on as a sponsor, and then I was like, okay,
And who was that?
Tawna Sanchez.
Oh, yes.
Who was a foster parent herself. So
She's been really supportive of all
Yeah.
these issues,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I just have a couple things is, again, I want to repeat that for those that aren't know, and I think both of you, I don't know, Casey, if you're attending this, you won't be attending this afternoon, the home at the Civic Center, are you going to, 4 to 6? It's more of a
Open
drop-in?
house.
It's an open house.
Yeah, open house drop-in, 4
I
to
have
6.
3 other things in that time period.
Well, I'm going to be there at 4, I think. but I
yeah,
don't
so I'm
know.
going to be there. Yeah, I'm going to go at 4 too, and it's on the calendar. I think,
Yes.
here. Sorry.
Correct.
And then also, I just wish, and I think I commented on this last week, that we have such great partners out there. We need to somehow get better publicity out there, just all the things like you brought about this weekend, just all the thing that our partners in Health and Human Services is doing, because I think that's probably the best story that's never been told. It's just like how we do that. And I have some ideas we can talk about in another work session about how to get that word out more. So
I have some ideas, and they involve Carrie actually, because I hear you're really good at social media.
anyway, do we have anything else? to
I
come in
have
front of
a
us?
couple things which are actually along those lines. Is that
You've already used your time, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
did I? Oh my goodness.
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
But I was praising you. I need
Go
to
ahead.
have something else, right? Is that Heather from Champion Teams? She's been working on her car park program, and she urgently needs places for people to park, and people are hesitant to be the first.
Because you can have up to one, you can only have one.
Right. And she's identified a couple of county places where she would love to have support from
For a car park?
the commissioners. So I'm going to see about bringing that up. But I wanted to put that out there. That,
Maybe it would be a good idea to speak with our county council on that.
Yeah.
On
because that's-
liability.
yeah, exactly.
that's-
Yeah.
That will sort of define a lot of what we
He's
can and cannot
confused.
do.
We need to speak to him.
I'm happy to chat with you about
Yeah.
it, just trying to figure out what it is that.
Okay,
you got in
Casey,
mind.
anything else?
but they just need places to park for their vehicular camping program. That's
It's
like the
limited, it's a
last
very
step.
limited program.
Vehicular camping, okay.
Yeah. The city of McMinnville's been working on this, and then Champion Teams took it on as their, they would manage the program.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
this
it's
is
a
the
good
last
program,
step
it's a
is
good
finding
program,
places to
finding
park.
places to put them, which they can't
Yeah,
do.
and I'm really impressed by the work she does.
Yeah.
So I
Have
wanna
they
support her.
narrowed on what the program's going to look like?
I think they
as
fairly
far
much
as
have that all
duration,
set,
Everything-
that's
how
all
long they're
set
gonna be
out.
there?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
all set
everything
out.
is in place except for their first site.
Where they put a couple of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as we
So-
see in the paper regularly,